Hello, and welcome to Borrow My Belief, a podcast that's designed to help you believe in yourself. And if you don't yet, you can borrow mine for now. And today I've got a wonderful guest called James Martin. James is in the dental industry, which is a place that I've been in for a while, and he's got a wonderful story to tell you today. So, James, if you'd like to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about yourself to begin with.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks for the intro. Just then, thank you so much for that, Joanna. So basically, when it comes to the my background and my history, I'm a dentist by trade. However, I was going through the motions, shall we say. So I qualified in 2016, and about 3, 4 years in, I was pretty content with dentistry. I was pretty happy with it, but it wasn't exactly the thing that like lit me up 100%. And if I was to put a number on it, I would say I was like 7.5, 8 out of 10 in terms of satisfaction and fulfillment from my dentistry career. Which, by my logic at the time, I was like, well, this is pretty darn good. This is like as good as it gets, really, for a job. Are you with me? You know, we're sort of told to believe that if we don't hate our jobs and if we enjoy it somewhat, that's as good as it gets. Or at least that was the belief that I was operating on at the time. And therefore, what that meant was that I continued to do that. Now, the interesting part came whenever I started reading books on finance and money, which happened in about 2017. I was fascinated by the world of Bitcoin. That was initially what sparked this interest. And then when I started to read about crypto and Bitcoin, I realized that I needed to go one layer deeper and understand money at a more fundamental level, because crypto and all of the things that surround that make way more sense whenever you know that stuff. So a hobby became an obsession, and I used to read books and books and books on those things that I mentioned just then. And really, this was going on in the background for many years before I was able to grasp how that world works and how I could use that world to be able to invest and grow my own wealth. And actually, believe it or not, that can be done by someone who is how can we say, an amateur versus a professional. In fact, there's a lot of advantages to being able to do that yourself. As an amateur, the saying would be that nobody cares as much about your own money as you. Naturally, your goals and objectives are completely aligned with where you want to go, versus whenever you get somebody else involved, naturally, well, that may not always be the case, or maybe the case to an extent, but not beyond that. But anyway, that's a story for another day. So anyway, when I was in, let me see, when I was 27, 28, so I think that was maybe like 2020, I had a really bad football injury, and basically I tore my ACL, which is incredibly painful if anybody's ever done that. And to cut a long story short, it meant that I had a hiatus out of dentistry for about 3 months, where I couldn't work because I obviously had to have surgery on my knee. And then what happened afterwards was I couldn't work for a little while because you had to take some weight off your legs. You couldn't walk around and be animated like a dentist is, or at least I was as a dentist. And what that meant was that I really just figured to myself, why don't I just go ahead and make a Facebook group that's centered around all this knowledge that I've acquired over the years. Didn't even necessarily realize that it may be of value to other people. And that was how Dentistry Invest started, which is my online community, which eventually became a company in and of itself, and a learning platform, and a few other things that we do as well. It's all with the mission and objective of, number one, boosting the dentist income. And then the second part is, okay, cool, what do we actually do with this income that comes into our bank account? Is in how can we invest it and how can we do it safely? How can we use the knowledge of a professional to be able to do that independently, to be able to invest your wealth independently? And that's where my partner in Dentistry Invest comes in, Luke Hurley, who listeners of my podcast may recognize that name. So between the two of us, that's our mission. That's what we do. That is what we've created. And that's why we're really, really, really excited about 2024 and beyond.
Sounds wonderful. Just a couple of questions from that. You said you were a 7 out of 10 in your dentistry. What out of 10 is this finance
10.
topic? 10 out of
And
10.
you know
And
what though? Let me tell you something, John. So basically, it's the finance stuff itself. However, it's all the running of Dentistry Invest that comes alongside of it. It was that was who I was meant to be. I just didn't realize it at the time. I always had entrepreneurial energy, and for me, it felt like I had to contain it within the practices that I worked in. And the reason that I felt like I had to contain it was, let's be honest, not everybody likes the energy where you're constantly chucking ideas at people and you're running around super high energy. Not everyone appreciates that, which I didn't actually get at the time. Yeah. So I kind of I didn't really get why there was like a mismatch in energies or why that would irritate people. It's only really now I can see in the rearview mirror. But you know what? If you run your own company and you're like that, well, you're in the best place because you literally have the perfect conduit to manifest that aspect of your character or personality.
I really agree with that. And I'm one of those people that chucks around ideas. So I resonate.
It's
And
an identity. It's an identity, right?
it is. And we need those stable people around us as well that can say, "Oh, hold on a minute. That's a little bit pie in the sky." Sometimes.
I agree. I
Um,
agree.
and so I'm interested to know is as a young child, when you were growing up, did you have any interest in this area then, or is there anything that you can look back on and go, "Oh, I always was interested in that, but I went down this path because."
Yeah, I remember at school. Actually, this was something I was thinking about the other day. I remember in school, I had a bit of an entrepreneurial streak. Do you know the way in every school in the 90s there was always that kid who burned the CDs, who like took music off the internet and burned them onto CDs and sold them. I was that kid in our school, and then I always thought to myself, okay, cool, I've got some. I literally sold them for like £1 a CD, yeah. And I had this box in my room, and this is actually fascinating, right? Because this box, it had like it was like a little chest of drawers, and it was about this size, like maybe how can we say like 6 inches by about 10 inches, something like that. So slightly taller than it was wide, and it had these little drawers in it, right? And I figured out that I remember these drawers, right? That you could put in exactly they were the exact dimensions of pound coins. Like you could put like six in a row and six vertically and three horizontally. So it was extremely satisfying when you filled it all up with pound coins. Then you could close the drawer and you moved on to the next one. Yeah, and I remember I had like satisfaction and cash flow, so to speak. You know, it wasn't like a great deal of cash flow, but it was cash flow. Are you with me? It was like £1 a
Yeah.
CD. I filled like two of these drawers up, and then I got to the third one, and then I thought to myself, I was like, okay, cool, but like, what can I actually do this to make more money? Like, what can I invest this in? How can I grow it? And that was actually what inspired me to think, okay, like, yeah, I've got cash flow. I felt rich at the time, and I was like, but what does the next level look like? And then that seed was planted in my head, all because of that little entrepreneurial, how can we say, enterprise whenever I was like 15, whatever age, 14, 15.
So it always fascinates me that when I talk to people who've actualized their dreams, there's always something that leads back to the childhood. And then it fascinates me that there's something that happens along the way that people unplug from that spirit and then go into the mainstream of society, which is, and there's nothing wrong with this if it's for you, which is to work and then work to retire and so on and so forth. So, what happened along the way that you ended up going into dentistry, which was perfect for you? You said you got a 7 out of 10. It led you to this, but you kind of lost sight of it somewhere in the middle and came back to it.
Yeah, I mean, how can I say? I guess that I just, yeah, that's an interesting one just then. So let me see. I guess, yeah, I just felt like there was always part of me who wanted something more, really, is the answer to that. And actually, this is good that you asked this because I didn't even have the lexicon or the vocabulary to be able to articulate that at the time. And because my own beliefs limit me, my belief was that 7 or 10 out of 8 out of 10 is good enough. That's acceptable.
Yeah,
It's fine. And I thought to myself, well, hey, do you know what? If it was 3 out of 10, then it's not for me. I'd walk away. But it almost like that mediocrity lulled me in complacency because I reasoned to myself that actually this is as good as it gets. Whereas in my opinion, my new belief that I have now for since probably since around about Dynasty Invest started, there's actually a 10 out of 10 thing out there for everybody, and surely that's worth rolling the dice for. Surely that's worth looking for your whole life because it really is that good whenever you get there. And once upon a time, if I would have heard somebody say that, I would have said like, yeah, whatever. I kind of didn't, but I didn't subscribe into other people saying that because I thought it was a bit airy fairy until I went through it myself. So I guess what I'm saying is that really there's something out there that lights everybody up and will be that exciting thing, which is 10 out of 10. And you'll know it when you find it because it just makes you feel that
yeah,
good and you enjoy it that much. That's how you know because there's no other real way that you can determine that other than just listening to how much fun and satisfaction and joy it gives you. Obviously, it might be the case that you pick something up and you're not like immediately good at it and you have to persevere with it a little bit. That's where there's a little bit of perseverance there. Let's say that it's not always immediately obvious, yeah. But like I say, if you keep trying, you keep rolling the dice, you'll find that thing. And then what it means is that you can live a life which is completely aligned with the thing that makes you happy on the inside. That's completely aligned with your inner essence, whatever that is, and however that looks for you.
Yeah, I get that. So just to expand on that in my own experience, because I want to talk about beliefs after this, but to expand on that, when I found that sweet spot, and it took me a while, it took me like 5 years. And when I found it, it was almost like there was no stopping me now. And you hear successful people talk about that have you why. And I would say take some time to contemplate and allow that to come through organically in its own time, but be curious about it, because once you do find your why, once you do find what it is inside that you're passionate about, for me anyway, there is no stopping me now. Like when the obstacles come up, it's like, how do I get past this?
You know, there's a book called The Way of the Superior Man. Did we talk about this on your last podcast? Did we?
No,
I
no.
love this book. It's so cool, and it talks about the psychology of people who have how can we say yin energy and yang energy. Yang energy is the doer energy, where you just want to go and do stuff, and that's what brings you happy. And yin energy is more passive and receptive. And not there's actually no one of those two energies that's better than the other. The key is to have balance, a little bit like the little yin yang symbol, the little cow symbol, like that. Yeah. But anyway, in that book, what was the thing that he says? One of the things that he says a lot of stuff, but the author, one of the things that he says is that when you go through life, if you think about it, there's this thing on the inside that is the thing that completely lights you up and makes you happy. However, there's many layers over which it's over the top of it, yeah. And you have to sequentially bust through the layers to find the thing that makes you happy. So here's the thing. Put it like this. Let's use the example of dentistry. Now, some people might absolutely love dentistry, and some people might not so love dentistry. Either's fine. It's actually cool. There's no judgment or anything like that. It's just that I believe that that's something that's certainly acknowledged amongst the dental community. So we think about it like this. For a lot of us, we must have wanted to be a dentist at literally some stage, okay? Because we actually went and signed up to the course. Yeah, there might be the odd person out there who's completely coerced into it, but however, the majority of people felt that they wanted to be a dentist at some stage. Now, some people get there to that place and it actually lights them up, it brings them so much joy. And what that means is that actually that profession is completely aligned with your inner essence and who you're meant to be and the thing that makes you happy. Wow. However, some people get there and then they think to themselves, actually, now that I'm here, now that I've made it a little closer to my inner, the center of my being, the inner essence, I've peeled back one of the layers, so to speak. I still don't feel like I'm quite fully there. However, the point is I wouldn't have actually made it any closer from the external to the internal. Even though I'm not fully there, I've still made progress unless I went down this path, because part of me would have been wondering, what if? So really we got to see all these decisions as iterations, which bring us closer and closer to actually being aligned with our inner essence.
Okay, so talking about, I see a lot of dentists, James, because I work in the dental industry, and I see a lot of dentists who are very passionate about their jobs, about serving patients, and kind of want to do things a little bit differently, but they might have some fears coming up about doing things a little bit differently, or about investing and in alignment with your business as well, and something alongside the pension. And I want to go back to this word beliefs and like unpick that, because you've mentioned beliefs quite a lot. And I think what's holding these people up is something that's going on in their belief system.
Big time. And I see it all the time. And like, let's say fundamentally that someone has the belief that investing is not a good thing or money is bad or something along those lines, then that's going to impede them massively from exploring how that works, because immediately they're just shut off from it. They're closed off from it. Are you with me? Yeah. Whereas at least if we have the belief that, okay, this could help me, then you could go and read about it and learn about it and then decide if it's something that you want to do. So your beliefs in that actually enable you to explore opportunities. That's the cool thing about beliefs, and I never realized that. And I look back on my beliefs when I read my very first book on investing, which is the very first book on investing in traditional assets as opposed to crypto and Bitcoin and what have you. And that book was called How to Own the World by Andrew Craig. Shout out to that book because I really like it. Doesn't teach you everything that you need to know. However, it does a really good job of teaching the majority of it and certainly getting people off the ground. There's a little bit more to it the more and more you get into it, like there is with everything. Let's be real, you know what I mean? But it's about making some progress. Even if you get from 0 to 6, that's better than nothing. That's better than staying where we are. So anyway, my belief system was my friend actually, and this is actually how it happened. My friend was like, James, you need to read this book. And I literally remember how I thought at the time, and I was like, that's not really for me, you know, that's not really something that Joe Blogs is supposed to do. It sounds risky, sounds dangerous, sounds all of this stuff. And that meant that I actually procrastinated whenever it came to exploring that. And then it was only actually because he harped on at me so much that I did actually read it. And then when I read it, I was like, wow, this has completely changed how I see things, big time. This has completely changed my perspective on this matter. I don't now see it as something that is optional. I actually see it as something that's 100% necessary and that we must do if we're actually serious of getting to the point where we have freedom in our lives, where we're not necessarily having to exchange time for money continuously. So like I say, it only came through that shift in beliefs for myself that I was even able to open that door in the first instance. Now, it just so happens that I didn't even have a label or a name for that process at the time, but it's only now that I look back. And when you realize that, when you actually have that epiphany that your beliefs are dynamic and that you can change them and shape them and enhance them based on what your goals or objectives are, then you become way more powerful because then you can intentionally craft them, which is awesome. And one more thing, not to bang on too much, another podcast that I like, Alex Hormozi, where he talks about, it's called The Game. He talks about business and entrepreneurship. And he was saying that one of the biggest things that I feel, or he feels people close themselves off from is the whole kind of woo-woo side of thinking bigger and what have you, which is thinking about how we think as human beings and understanding that. And in his opinion, their belief that it's not necessarily craft their beliefs is one of the biggest things that holds them back from entrepreneurship. You literally have to be a different person and think a different way if you want to hit those heights and reach those things. So if you can intentionally craft them and intentionally understand that concept, and therefore implement things into your life that will allow you to enhance your beliefs, such as putting yourselves in certain situations, talking to certain people, reading certain books, and being open to new information, then you're way more powerful, in my opinion.
So a couple of things here. I visit dentists on a daily basis or weekly basis, and they're looking at moving away from the NHS because it's not serving the patients or them anymore. They're looking at putting memberships in place, and I see that some of them really struggle with this. They really struggle with this in that there's fear arising that patients might think they're charging too much or that they should work in the NHS and all these different things. And it's all to do with beliefs. And you and I know that you can change your beliefs. And you and I know that the beliefs are formed in our childhood because of our environment, and they're not real. They're perceptions, and we can change those perceptions with doing a little bit of internal work. There's plenty of resources. But if you were to explain about how you changed your beliefs and what the process was for you, I think that would be really useful.
Do you know what? I'm so glad you asked this because there's actually a really killer way to do this, in my opinion, which is useful for even the most skeptical person whenever it comes to this whole concept of beliefs in and of itself. And by the way, I used to be Mr. Skeptic. I used to think that the world was so black and white, and I was like, I've decided this is how it is, and therefore that is how it is. But if you think about that, that makes no sense because deciding something is a subjective thing, right? And the notion that you have created a full theory of the universe and how it works to extreme accuracy in your head by the age of 27, or whatever age you are for that matter, is completely absurd if you think about it. Yeah?
Yeah.
You with me?
Yes, I'm absolutely with you.
And the second I realized that, I was like, that is dumb. That is arrogant that you think that, James. And that was a big shift for me personally. Obviously, not everybody's internal dialogue and how that perception will shift for them will be exactly along those lines. But that's what worked for me. Anyway, to develop that further, right? Here's what I would say to the audience out there. Is
Mhm.
there even a 1% chance that how you perceive something in this world, is there even a 1% chance that that may not be accurate? Is that true? Yes, of course it is. You know, we can't just say, can't say that it's 100% accurate. So the second that we're saying that is the second that we're saying that we could be wrong about a lot of these things that we take for granted. Yeah. Now, if you accept that you could be wrong, you also simultaneously accept that there might be a better way of perceiving something that is more likely to lead you to your goal or objective, whatever that is. And the second that we do that is also the second that we say to ourselves, okay, well, based off that, and now taking into account that information, wouldn't it be helpful for me to at least read more information on that one particular subject so that now I can actually make a belief from an informed perspective rather than just my perception, which has occurred up until this very point in this very moment right now.
That is amazing. I love that way of looking at it, and it's very practical, very easy. I've actually written that down. And it's
Cool.
about educating yourself because we only see things from the experience we've had up until that moment. So you're educating yourself and expanding your outlook and your reach.
You know what's particularly beautiful about that as well? You're not even saying that you're wrong. You're just saying that you're open to more information.
Yeah,
And
curious.
I guarantee that if you do that enough times, you'll shift some of your beliefs and how you see a lot of
Yeah,
concepts in this world.
yeah.
What's the harm in reading a book? What's the harm in exploring something?
Well, I suppose like we've been talking about dentists. When you start out on your career to be a dentist, you don't know what you know when that first day that you go for your education to the end. And you're a different person. You've got a different viewpoint and things look very different. It's the same, really. Your beliefs have changed in that education. And going
Yeah.
back to the woo-woo and what you said about that, what I'm finding now is if you think about it, in yoga, I'm a lot older than you. I'm 55 this year. When I was younger, yoga was you woo woo, meditation was woo woo, and now you can talk to professional people and they know there's benefit in meditation, even if they don't do it, and they know there's benefit in yoga. And there's lots of people like Dr. Gabor Mate, and other authors that are now backing up a lot of this stuff with science, and it's really interesting. So if anyone wants to go and have a look at the science, it actually is there.
And you know what? Even if there wasn't science, let's say there wasn't at all. Are you with
Hmm.
me? Yeah. The only what science actually does is define things empirically. That's literally what science does. What is empiricalness? Empirical is the ability to measure it. Yeah. Now, until we get to the level where we can measure and comprehend every single chemical reaction in the human brain in real time, instantaneously, well, a lot of that stuff can't be defined to the most fundamental level. There's always going to be an element of mystery around it as well. And the second that we say that is also the second that we're saying that actually there's a limit to science. So whilst we as dentists were trained to look for science, we also must understand that as a system to model the world, it's just not that entirely accurate yet, especially when we're talking about things that are so incredibly complicated, like how we think and how our brains work and what have you.
That's really interesting. So I have two questions for you that I'd like to finish off on.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
but first of all, when I do put this podcast up, I will put James's group below. So check out below. Um, you've got a book, a group on Facebook called Dentists That Invest, and I'm in there. And there's lots of great information. So I will put that up. Is there anything else you want to mention before I ask you these two questions that people can find you?
Nah, do you know what? Just that I've had a really good time today, and that the biggest reason that I like to do this stuff is to share all these things that I learned on my own journey through reading books and following curiosity, and also having lots of mentors inside dentistry whenever it came to my beliefs and let's say, a lot of the concepts that surround the communication side of dentistry, as in how to engage with their patients a lot more. Because when you understand human beings, you become inadvertently better at that. And understanding human beings is also understanding yourself. So, what I would say is that it's a real pleasure to share this stuff that I have learned over the years on your podcast today. And I wanted to thank you personally for that, Joanne. And then also, as well
Yeah.
as that, a lot of that stuff came from mentors as well. And I wish one of my beliefs beforehand was how much can I learn from somebody else? Whereas now I'm just like, I can learn everything from other people. I can learn something from everyone. And when you have that mindset, well, you'll find, or at least I found, a lot more cool stuff came into my life and a lot more doors opened.
So I have these two questions that I'd like to finish off on. And going back to mentors, though, if somebody else has done something, it's possible, right?
Hell yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, if you could go back to yourself, maybe at the toughest moment before you started finding what you wanted, maybe it was when you was off work and you started investigating different ways of being. If you go back to yourself and ask you and speak to that version of you and tell them anything, what would you tell them?
Oh man. Oh man. So many things. Let me see if I can distill it into a few things. First of all, I would say, James, follow your curiosity. I would say, James, you're going to regret the things that you didn't do more than the things that you did do. The dices that you rolled are at least, they've at least got a chance of giving you a six versus not rolling any dice at all. You roll enough dice, you're going to roll a six at some stage. I would say try to see things from the bigger picture and try to understand that in the toughest moments are the things that you learn the most valuable piece of wisdom that define how you see the world progressively and continuously going forwards.
But you know what, James? I think you must have known all that innately because you've done all that. So that's incredible. And my last question is if you could say anything to the audience, if it was just one last little thing, anybody watching this who might be in a position where something's boiling inside of them and they want to, whatever it is they're doing, and they don't quite believe it's possible yet, what would you say to them?
I would say try to see things from the perspective of your 85-year-old self. That's what I would say.
Oh,
This is extremely powerful, right? Try to put yourself in that person's shoes. Would they be more gutted that you spent your whole life trying and looking for the thing that is aligned with your inner essence that we spoke about earlier? Or would they be more gutted that we played completely safe our whole life? We never actually found that thing. We never actually got to the stage where we were like extremely excited to get out of bed every day and have this amazing 10 out of 10 existence. Or, as I say, because now whenever they're 85, well, they have no opportunity to be able to go back and change things. So we really usually only gain that perspective whenever we hit that age, at which stage we are unable to go back and affect the changes in our lives that wisdom grants us, or that wisdom in our lives would cause us to, well, enhance or make changes. How can we say, to what we do, basically? So really, if you try to put yourself in that person's position, it does two things. It gives you that wisdom, it gives you that perspective. And also, there's only one person on this earth whose goals are completely aligned with your complete and utter well-being, and it's you. So really, if you're seeing things from that person's perspective, they purely and simply just want the most altruistic, superior outcome for you right here, right now. So if you can talk to that person by going there mentally, it's extremely powerful. And I think a lot of people would see things from a slightly different perspective if we did that more frequently.
that was great. I did that recently actually on something that I was on myself, and it is a really great exercise. Do you
They
know
would
the
just tell, I think they would just, what I think they would tell you, that 85-year-old version of yourself, I think they tell you a lot. I think they tell you just keep going and keep
yeah,
exploring.
keep going. So, oh my gosh, James, there's been so many golden nuggets of information in this today. I can't wait to put it up and for people to hear it. And thank you very much for being my guest today.
Thank you so much for having me, Joanne. We'll see each other soon.
Kira.